So, some more collective reading. Um, Again, I see that I take it from the personal experience and bring it back to the collective because I feel that that's going to resonate with a lot of people there. So, you have learned to own your energy, and the intention that you sent to own your energy, to own your sovereignty, to receive the help that actually is providing, okay, not the triangle of abuse is type or anything like that. And so you learn how to backfire, okay? You learn how to cause curses against you to backfire, which means how to backfire, right? You learn how to deal with all those inversions. You know, when you try to create something beautiful and you feel that this energy in the air, the people in the air, they're not supportive of that. And especially if you're doing anything creative, you know, the cults that are based around inversion, they try to, kind of get a hold of that. So you learn how, first of all, you might have learned what it is. Some people call it spiritual warfare, some people call it cult abuse. It's just a notion that there's just a tremendous amount of society that is ruled by curses, betrayal based economy, trade, um, and disrespect for the feminine, which causes emasculation as well. And you learn how to own that energy. Okay, you learn how to own your energy and not back down. Okay, because maybe in the beginning you learned some manifestation techniques and you're like, okay, why is it inverted? What's happening? And you learn that there are those who try to invert or abort your creation or take from you or put suffering on you. And that's a part of like ritual abuse. Okay, it's satanic ritual abuse. And you learn to hold on that energy. Now, what happens when you learn to hold on to your energy and defend your energy and have all these curses backfire is they suffer a lot. And so I want you to, first of all, understand that the suffering that you hear, the oh no, please stop, and so on and forth, that's what they planned for you. And you know that because you've been through that. So you understand that they're not suffering because of anything other than the fact that they cursed you. And it backfires. Whereas what you're dealing with is simply setting a boundary for when you create something beautiful, set a boundary. Let's say you're an astrologer and somebody tries to, and you're working ethically, okay, and somebody tries to put you out of business. Okay, I'm not talking about people who work unethically or people who, and you can have a mistake, but you can correct that. But the thing is, for example, I had told someone who came to me for a reading, I said, well, it's about relationships. I said, well, your seventh house is ruled by Saturn. It matures at 30, 35, 36. And she went like, oh my God, she was so angry. And, stuff like that happened to us. I was not bridging the information at that point correctly because I had accepted it around myself. Stuff like that can happen to us. But you see, when people try to decide for you what to work in, and again, I'm not talking about abuse of power. Okay, if I go back to Itamar Iron, then he's abusing which children are taken to the welfare, and that is just satanic ritual abuse, and that is an abuse of power. Okay, so that is not a profession. That is an abuse of power. Assisting people, assisting children, yeah, but cooperating with stealing children, okay? Just like we don't like it when the court decides that the father will not see his children no matter what, and so on. We don't like the opposite as well, right? And especially not when the children go to emergency centers and then are going through ritual satanic abuse. And you see that there is a trend in the cult right now to curse people. And that is it's not a new trend, it's a very old trend. They're living that way. And so whenever you try to do something with your life, and if you're creating something, then you run into that, okay? And so you learn how to protect your energy. You learn how to honor your energy. You learn how to have curses backfire. And you learn how whenever, the more that they try to interfere with that, for example, I had a person, this Itamar, stealing a talisman. So now, so now my magic is affecting you even more directly because it backfires, okay? If you try to do it malefically, it backfires. And it did something with that because I've seen the omen of the peacock on, what was it? Tenet Tipul Nafshi, okay? It's just like a company that provides for therapy. And they wrote about jealousy and something with Tilburg University. And so I said, well, it's very true. When the psychologist Itamar Yaron was jealous, where I was beginning to actually recover, then he went out and did so and so things with the cult and so on. So now he's exposed to his colleagues as well, because those things backfire. And anybody who's even an inch professional would identify that. Of course, I would not waste my time not doing anything like creative if I didn't really absolutely have to tend to that. So you have your own examples for that, whether it's the therapy, whether it's your boss, whether it's colleagues, whether it's profession, whether people don't like your profession, or maybe, I don't know, they were surrounded with cult, and instead of talking about the cult, they're talking about a particular profession. Okay, and this is the time for us to talk about the cult because it's coming from the cult. Like, you can be a psychologist and you can be open dialogue, okay? So having sovereign respect for sovereignty and accommodate for their well-being, and abolish and raise awareness and abolish and refuse and disobey anyone that forces any jail trauma on them, like hospitalization or beta blockers that have proven to be lethal, okay? So to respect the autonomy, like, you can do psychology, you can, it's nothing wrong with that. There are great benefits for the psychology. I think there are a lot of, I have a colleague, Chris Brennan, that is astrologer, and now he's delving into combining astrology with psychology, because there's a lot of things there's a lot of things that when you know psychologically, you understand about astrology. For example, if you know that Neptune is associated with, the abusive victim abuser savior triangle, but it's also about imagination, creativity, then it's good, because if you have a chart, okay, for example, one astrologer that I learned about relationship a lot from is Jewel, and I think she's having new courses right now, so you want to check out her stuff. I learned so much from Truth in Aspect Astrology, so much so that in the beginning, when I would do readings, I would even hey, that's the thing that I learned from this channel. That's the thing I learned from this channel, because this is something that I developed my outer planets to inner planets readings later. But this is something that is so useful when you begin to look at synastries. It's a cookbook, but the cookbook is, when you combine the things, you get a holistic picture. And we actually give readings to people to see how it manifests or doesn't manifest in their readings. And just to know that, let's say Neptune is crossing your 7th house. So if Neptune is in your 7th house natally, that is when you would need to see Jewel, okay? But this is when, if it's a transit, then this is when an issue for you is going to be relevant from so-and-so year until so-and-so year. So let's say issues of codependency, like, it's good to learn about, it's good to go and learn about it, but it's also good to remember that it's not a natal timestamp, okay? It's something that you deal with in transit. Let's say Neptune is going to go to my 2nd house, and that can create a situation where I have to surrender a lot of what, with the value or possessions or stuff like that. Or alternatively, I can have suddenly a sudden influx of tremendous wealth, okay? But it is going to go throughout a decade and something before, you know, before I understand what it's at. And so you see that it's not about the profession, but more how we do that, and that changes across time. And because the cults, because you had to be in Masons basically or Illuminati or whatever to do anything. Before I was canceled on X, and by the way, as it can be, it doesn't have to be like the founder, or it can be anyone. But before I was canceled on X, I had a lot of DMs from Illuminati trying to recruit me, and I was like, thanks but no thanks, or ignoring these, and then I got canceled. Okay. But I also saw people that are totally MK, actors and so on, and public figures, and they are also canceled. Okay, so it's not like that helps. Even people that went with the satanic whatever, and the channels also canceled. So again, when somebody tries to scare you into something, know that it's not going to help to esquiash, something we learn as society. And back to the reading, because you understand more and more about that, then you understand why you run into that in more day-to-day life even. That can actually encourage you to pursue your dreams, because, hey, if you're going to have to deal with that and beat that cult anyway, so you're going to beat that cult anyway and do whatever the fuck you came here to do, you know? And that creates a lot of trauma, especially because, let's put it that way, in order to take something from you energetically, they would need to get to your sexual energy. And at first they were like so seductive and so this and so that. And if you were like me, recovering from sexual boundary violation or stuff like that, then perhaps you try to experience touch or something like that. But then they try to take from your energy, okay, and deplete you or try to control you. And so you learn to set a clear boundary to that. And I see that in a wide range of people. So, one good thing to remember, okay, is do not be persistent with cursing me. It will help you with the side effects, because it backfires, okay? So they suffer. And the thing is that in the cult, they think that they have to do that, and they don't. They don't. It's not the door to prosperity, okay? The thing is that, as Elizabeth April said, we have the power in numbers. And so the more of us get it faster that esquiashing to these people is not going to yield, the more that they get that esquiashing to this dumb fucker is not going to yield, the easier, because the more they are persistent with cursing you, it will help. The more they're persistent with cursing, the more it backfires and the more it's bad for them. Because if they try to rape you to get to your sexual energy, it backfires, okay? Very simply put, it backfires. So another thing that you can say to yourself, okay, I'm not to blame, so don't blame me for curses that backfire, because cursing me, you can see your name there, backfires. I'm patient with myself, okay? That's something that we all grow with. Uranus and Taurus, the revolution of taking the time for ourselves, okay? It should not cause you suffering, okay? The fact that I'm patient with myself should not cause anybody suffering. So do not be impatient with me or cause me any type of suffering. And so this is where curses of suffering, of torture, they backfire. And of course, they suffer. It's a fact of life. I can try to, say a wish for them to get out of it quickly, for them to cancel the curse if they don't know how to cancel the curse, or for them to, I can bless you with learning how to cancel the curse and not curse again. Those things are relevant. And again, but the more they are persistent, the more that they suffer. And they do suffer. That's the thing, okay? And I guess for a lot of them, it gets them persistent because they experience the rape that they wanted you to experience. And you can sometimes sense it or feel that, or feel an energy. It's kind of dense. It's kind of like, and then you feel like, literally, I heard somebody crying. It's like, no, no, stop. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just protecting from your rape, right? It's my right to defend myself from your rape, right? And so what comes up is you get to gather more and more tools, not only to defend yourself, but you also, when you understand and you begin to create and defend that, then anything that stands in the way is revealed. And so now they're at the stage where they're trying to cover up. So they're trying to put forth sometimes to cover up, and that backfires even more. So they suffer even more because they're just used to one way of being, and that's curses, and that's taken away from people, and that's not going to work. Okay, if I think, for example, when I was, at work and I didn't want to do corruption and so on, and I had less and less jobs already in 2008. And people were, stacking up against me because either they were coming just, their husband was working and the wife was coming to speak with people, and they didn't want actually to deal with work. Because when you have work, you think about it. Let's say I was working at marketing. So when you have clients and you have closed deals, you have questions. And if my location is situated inside, so that the people that come in, they always mistaken for the other office. So it comes at the other office, but you won't be having deals closed, definitely not to the number that I do them, without having people coming to ask questions. It's a part of having customers, right? And so if you just came to work and you're like used to do some Excel files that don't really amount like to anything, and another Excel file and another Excel file and another Excel file, and your husband's bringing the food and your husband bringing the income and you're bringing, the food, then I understand why that means change for you. It's like, hey, this business is suddenly working. There's this person is suddenly working and they're closing deals and they're doing things that are like, hey, weren't you just meant to replace someone for until they give birth? And I'm like, yeah. But I'm supposed to, like, she's gonna give birth. She's supposed to come here, and the business is supposed to be running, right? And so you're gonna have people asking questions. You're gonna have people that somebody has something to complain about. Somebody has it's a natural course of things when you do your job for actually working. And on the other hand, I can say that I had, for example, a misunderstanding with someone who owned a pension where he had dogs, and she really wanted somebody to work like to hold the place. And I thought she's like a doggy sitting because that's what she published. Okay, she published doggy sitting, and I said okay. And then she said she'd need someone to clean every once in a while, so I introduced to her to baking soda and vinegar, which is the best thing ever. And she was so reluctant, and I was like, because I can't stand economics, the stinky one that people, poison themselves with. And I was just cleaning under the sofa. It had like a decade old, stain. So I was cleaning that under the sofa. And that disappeared. So then she was like, she began to buy baking soda and vinegar. Like, so that's something I taught her, but I wasn't able to like clean, because that for me was rehabilitation. And so we understood each other that she was looking for something else, and it was the first time taking an employee. So she learned from that, and I learned from that, because for me it was rehabilitation to be with the dogs and have something that I can concentrate on after I was recovering from the abuse of Itamar Aron when I went to therapy, okay? And the learning aromatherapy. And so, so you can understand how the experience towards 2008, before as Pluto ingressed into Capricorn, it became more and more radical that you couldn't just like do a job and live good and save money in the bank and save for an apartment and save for your studies. Like, you're supposed to be making that out of your own wealth. If you come with zero net worth, you're supposed to be making a good living. Intergenerational wealth is fantastic, but you're not supposed to be reliant on that. And I think when I hear people who, even though they're from gold, okay, the people who are coming from old money, okay, then they have a lot of responsibility because you only get the inheritance if you take on the business. Now, of course, there's a problem because whichever line of business, there are problems with, ethics. And this is because the Masonry was living on slavery, and also indigenous people were living on slavery. So it's kind of like people chose their battles when it came to, the world. But now every time there's an open door and things are changing, and people have to adapt, like businesses have to adapt. For example, if I think about, astrology, I have to adapt even to internal changes. I was sure when I did astrology that I will forever want to have clients one-to-one so I can be in touch with the field. And I had no idea where that would be taking me. And now doing sometimes delving into mundane astrology, astrological declarations of astrology of declarations of independence, astrological magic. So it's a more incorporating creation and stuff with aromatherapy that I like to do, and new ideas and new things. So there's a whole lot of us. I have to adapt myself internally, and so we need to have an economy where we can be housed independently of our ability to work, and we can facilitate those internal changes, especially when Uranus comes. Uranus is not so accommodating for regulations, and that's for a reason. And we need to have upbringing and relational stuff that are, you think about prenuptials, okay, or that is so, Uranus is also divorce, but it's not just divorce. Think about Uranus as your midlife crisis, okay? You know that is coming. You know that there is this astrological thing and that's about that age where that's going to happen, your Uranus opposition. So this is where you need to budget. Now, if you have your chart, then you know what? You can hop on a reading with me, actually. I don't know what. Let's do something. While we still have the dollar, so I think $300 would be okay. If you are setting right now, okay, I would need to think how to do that. I tell you what, because, okay, I can give you, I need to think about it. You see that how Uranus works? Because if we talk, for example, and you want to have kind of like a forecast of when would money be flying out of the pocket, it's a lot of transit. So I think $300 is like, it's a fair for a reading, but for that it would be way more. So I think at least $1,200 for if you want me to take a look at every transit that you might be spending money unusually. But this would also require me to be a bit more Saturnian. So I'm not sure I can offer that to you. And that is the money flying out of the pocket. And my technique for that is looking at transits to Uranus by Venus, by Mercury, by Mars. So you can begin to do that for yourself. And the hard aspect, we're looking for the red, okay, for the hard aspects. And budgeting for that, understanding this, having a more realistic appraisal of your needs can help you to budget more correctly, because as you can see, was when the structure of society is not working, then people tend to crumble, and the structure tend to crumble. Okay, which is what happened at the end of Pluto Aquarius, Pluto Capricorn. Our structures are completely like crumbled. You write to the municipality or you write to the government and you have no reply from the ministries, or you write, people need help of the police and no help from the police and stuff like that. You see, it's very crumbling. Okay, it's kind of like what you have, if in Israel I want to have a passport, for example, I don't think I can have in reasonable time unless I go to the emergency, and then I need to have at least 3 days before. So it's like it's not here and not there, because in COVID I could just buy an emergency passport and travel. Um, so there are a lot of things that are really crumbling, and that opens the door for innovation and initiation of we the people coming together. If you think about the court system, if your Supreme Court judges need to have snuff films of children that they rape in order to keep the position, and it's also a mole intelligence position, then, it's not, the jury is not really jurifying, and people begin to think about the conflict of interest. Okay, if there's a secret cult that is around all these things, then it's a conflict of interest, like literally everywhere. So, because the problems that you have is not with a person, but actually with the habit of courses and placing all those things. And so you see, even when I got to like welfare, then I studied, like I did something with my life, then I did a business. And then like people are beginning to come for me. At first you think it's like, okay, it's normal jealousy. And I call it the bumhole sniffing stage, because when I was working with dogs, then every time a new dog comes in, then everybody smells their butt. And now, and I'm thinking, let's say when I stopped calling myself astrology, I don't know, student or whatnot, and I said astrologer, and because it's kind of like it's like I'm an astrologer. You certify yourself because there is no certification. Let's face it. It's vast. There's no such thing as certification. Let's be very honest about that. And you think, but you want to go to a doctor yeah, wait, when you go to the doctor, if you have a heart attack, by the way, and you should, I mean, if you have a heart attack, right, don't continue to take the olanzapine that they give you afterward, because you then will have collapse of autonomic muscles and you will not even have a signal that you're going to have a heart attack. Okay? So I hope that helps. There have been dozens of won lawsuits against olanzapine, Abilify, Seroquel. Olanzapine is Afrexa, and along the years, and every time you hear breakthrough through research, and then they have the electromagnetic whatnot. Yeah, how should I say it? Housing. Also with essential oils. I learned aromatherapy course 1, course 2. I learned to do creams and butters and stuff, and it's so fucking cool. And it helps. But the thing is, the way it helps, for example, I put Achillea on my teeth, anti-inflammatory, and it helps to align yin yang and to tell the truth. And so I began to tell the names of the people that have been trying to cause my well-being to backfire. Okay, so of course it helped, right? But you have to understand that how does the essential oil work is that it facilitates a change that you need to make in your life, like stand up for your truth. Okay, so that is just a part of that. So let's say if you need housing first, then electromagnetic whatnot, maybe it can help you to get to fight for the debt for the house. I don't know, but you got to see how it works. And when it comes to like those antipsychotic stuff, the beta blockers that are also given to cancer patients, to heart condition patients, they re-victimize. Okay, they simply cause trauma symptoms. Okay, akathisia, involuntary muscle contraction, or stopping the involuntary muscles to contract. Those are things that happen. This is like the freeze or fight, flight, freeze or fawn that happen to the body in trauma. So that this is why those effects are called pyramidal and extrapyramidal. Okay? It's a cult treatment. It's an inversion of medicine. And that's exactly what cult-like sciences, back to Feynman, works. And now that they get to M theory, we need to see where is the inversion here, because we'll have a whole new physics that is not inverted when we tend to that. So you see that people tend to want to do something with themselves. They tend to not want to rely on welfare. They tend not to want to stay stuck in their life. The only time where only thing is that they would have like a fear, and if that fear is very based, then society and systems need to adapt themselves to success. Okay, to happy, thriving people, happy, thriving children, happy, thriving women and men, happy, thriving relationships, orgasmic sex. Okay, the economy today is not equipped to having orgasmic sex. Okay, we think about birth control. The stress level at work. Okay, isn't that good incentive to change the economy? Sex work is espionage. Like people, I would think sex work is like people masturbating in front of a camera or something, and I'm like, yeah, that can be cool, but 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 then you say the trafficked, and you say, okay, what, everybody's trafficked? Yes, everybody's trafficked. No, they tortured to loss of identity and used as espionages. Ah. And then you had the red umbrella. Well, sex job is a job. Yes, this is true. This happens in other jobs as well. Sex work won't save you from this dumbfuckery, and neither would for the other jobs would save you from this dumbfuckery. We had to tend to the MK Ultra, which is the Masons, which is the gods, which is the curses. So I guess that's why they persecute Masons at these times of history. But but the antidote here is to understand that when you take hold of your energy, you begin, like, you unravel the actual science, the actual sense of discovery, the actual joy of living, and flip back the inversions. Okay, those who try to flip it on you, they flip it back on them, and then of course they suffer. It's a time of change, and that's the time, when, for example, I remember I had a conversation with my bestie, and he was at work, and he said, yeah, that his male friends have problems with people channeling their vagina. And I said, okay, it's something new. Okay, it's a new standard. It's a new standard to life. And thank you. And just like, with men, okay, the men have, I think, will also have emancipation here. And you got to get used to it, like, men rejecting, or men not always ready, happy for sex or whatnot. It's like that's a part of that, and it's also an emancipation. Men not always wanting family and children, and on the and also men having to come out of the old notions of, how should I say it, not paying attention to these things. Because that's a level of analysis that was missing for people to understand relations and intimacy. And I think Set 9 Taurus did a good job going over this. And people, unfortunately, did that by betrayal. So people had to deal with cheating, had to deal with fiscal problems, had to deal with accommodation. Okay, when you're a single woman, okay, how will you live? Or a single woman with children, okay, how will you live? And also came to the realization that sex work is espionage, and willing consent is important for, like, the bacteria, our nervous system, our fertility, our creativity, our ability to bring money. It's very simply put, okay? You bring money with being passionate about something that brings value to the world. Okay, that's economy. The inversion of that is all these things that we see right now, and I have another video that deals with how humanity is awakening, and it's just the fact that those things become so widespread, it's like it's everywhere, that we're forced to deal with that. That in the past, you would say, if you were living in America and you were a targeted individual, nobody around you knew what you're talking about. then now it became so widespread that it's both the increase of awareness and the fact that it became like a pandemic, that everybody talks about that, because everybody runs into that and understands that that's the type of stuff you would fight to the death, because yeah, but and I think in Ukraine and other places where people would get to know North Korean soldiers, and we would have more people escaping to North Korea, then instead of the conservative Americans to be, I'm sorry, molesting the testimonials of North Koreans to recruit them to, why do we need another pronoun? So I'm not a pronoun Nazi, but I think that accommodating for people's gender experience is not something we want to retract from. We just need to take care of the issue of medical welfare and the corruption in the medical profession in general when it comes to surgeries in general, okay? That whether it's your knees or the teeth or whatever. So that is an all across the board issue with the medicine. So so this is kind of like my experience, and you might relate to that on your level. And you see that, yes, when people curse you, it backfires. If they suffer, that's the suffering that they meant for you to have. And it's not nice to run into that. I guess people call it the problem of evil or whatnot. But it's like, hey, I'm not to blame. I'm not supposed to be suffering that. That's not going to yield anything prosperous for any of us when you do that and not complying and keep defending for my own creation is the way to go, okay? And so, but the thing is that more and more people become aware of that, and so we have a conversation. You see, this is an astrology channel, sometimes painting, astrological magic, but if I have to tend to these things on and on and on and on and on, you see that that's an issue, and you see that I'm not the only one tending to that, okay? The other people that even had their followers being cursed, okay? Which is bizarre. And then there are the fake accounts and all these things. Again, trying to make people not have income. Now, because it is so widespread, and now people en masse deal with that. And if we understand that those who created the problem bring a solution, then we understand what is this solution coming to serve, and we understand we need other solutions. Okay, now, of course, we need to understand, we be also inclusive, that our solution should be enabling life course-free, okay? Enabling childhood, enabling good life, okay? And enabling exit of violence and healing and curating. So that means house first for extended periods of time, and I'm talking about decades. I'm talking about decades, okay? And the fear of people, that people will get stagnant and not want to do anything with life. Of course they want to do things with their lives. I mean, I'm building a forest, and I just build a forest wherever I am. And I see these videos about a person who lives in Texas and building it through dams, and I'm building it through half moons. And it's very fascinating as half Dutch to look at the work of dams and learning, you know, and I think maybe I'll incorporate that in the Negev and build dams as well. And that's just me deciding to do stuff, okay? Like, I don't have a plot of land. It's like, hey, there's land here. It's not a forest. Let's make it forest. Okay? That's how I began to do for filmmaking, because I bursted into the school after I finished school, high school, and I worked on some videos, and then was a new teacher, and he saw me there and just like, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm leaving. And then he said, no, I need people to help me. And I was his TA for 4 years. So that's how I got my first job in filmmaking. Um, and so I think it's very exciting when you have something you're excited about doing, then you see that that creates a wave, very literally. So, yeah, I mean, when I first tended to like political assassination prevention, stuff like that, it's just like you identify patterns, you see that, you see things everywhere, then you start raising awareness, and then you're like, oh, start raising awareness for people that they might be targeted, and you're like, okay, I'm not just going to leave them with that. Well, oh, here are the things that you can do. But it's actually being aware of remote viewing, because you're targeted by remote viewers when the foundation does not receive tips from remote viewers. Oh, there's a trend now to block remote viewers from helping to find kidnapped people, and they use remote viewing to target people. So now there's a trend about that. So there's more people that are aware of that, and can do something about it, especially if some of the target people, some of them lawyers.